Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Christina, and I'm the Education Coordinator with the DuPage County Farm Bureau. We're really excited to have you joining us today as we talk about our special topic of baseball. Now, if you're out playing baseball with your friends, you probably aren't going to see a farmer standing out there in the field with you. But a lot of the items that we use during our baseball games actually start on a farm and come from plants and animals. So all of these things that I have listed here are baseball bats, catcher's mitts, the actual baseball itself, our hats, the grass, tickets and programs. All of these things come from agriculture products, as well as the food and snacks that we enjoy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All of the different things that we use to play baseball and where they come from on the farm. So let's start with the number one thing we have to play the game, the actual baseball itself. Now, in a regular baseball season, there are about 2,430 games. So each one of the 30 teams is playing about 162 games during their season. Now, during these games, the baseball players use about 8 to 10 dozen balls during the game. So that means in a baseball season, we need about 200,000 baseballs. So that's a lot of balls. And these baseballs are made from two very special animals. The first one is beef cattle. Now, a lot of times we think of beef cattle as just giving us meat. So some examples are hamburgers, steak, brisket. All of these things come from beef cattle. But we want to use most of the animals so that nothing is wasted. And so leather is a byproduct, so a secondary product that comes from beef cattle. So this leather, or the hide of the cow is made into leather, can make about 144 baseballs. So that's the outside part of the ball. Now, inside the ball, we actually have another agriculture product of wool. And wool comes from sheep. Now, sheep are sheared about once a year, and it's actually really important that we shear our sheep. The wool of sheep can actually grow continuously, so it gets really big and hot and heavy, and it can also trap things like dirt and pests and rocks and urine and get really nasty. So we want to make sure that we are shearing our sheep for their comfort, and then we also get wool out of it. So we use wool for things like clothing or even baseballs. Now, inside the baseball, that's where the wool is located. There's about 450 feet of wool inside one baseball. So to show you kind of how this works and how baseballs are made, I have this really cool video to show you the whole process. So let's take a look.
Crowds will go wild for these professional baseballs, and at the heart of each one is something called the pill. The pill is smaller than a golf ball. It's about 4 1/4 inches in circumference. Inside the pill's rubber casing is a sphere of cork. They pour latex adhesive over hundreds of pills loaded into a drum. Rollers spin the drum to evenly coat the pills with the adhesive. Next, they loop 4-ply wool around the pill. This machine spins the pill to wind the yarn around it. This winding substantially fattens the pill. They wind a second layer of wool around the pills. This yarn is 3-ply, and it thickens the ball a little more. For a third winding, they use another 3-ply yarn, but it's a bit lighter. The various layers of yarn are what give the baseball resilience, so it springs back into shape despite being hit repeatedly. For the final winding, they use a much thinner polywool blend because its surface is smoother. This wound pill is called the center. They add adhesive to a spinning drum, then load the centers into it. Using this hydraulic press, they punch out figure-8 shapes from leather, complete with holes around the periphery, allowing them to be stitched into baseball covers. They press 2 cutouts to the center sticky surface. It's an exact fit. They clamp the leather-clad ball in a vise, and it's time to sew. Working with 2 needles, the sewer pulls thread through the ball's center and up through the holes in the leather pieces to cross-stitch them together. They make quick work of the 108 stitches in each ball. The final stitch goes through the center of the baseball and out the other side. The sewer then pulls stitches into a V configuration to give the ball a consistent look and feel. The balls now roll into a press that smooths down the seams. Finally, a 3-headed stamper gives it the trademark, league logo, and the commissioner's signature. With drying cycles, it takes a week to make a professional baseball. It will be whacked and slammed out of the playing field, but that's life in the big leagues.
All right, so that's pretty cool. So let's move on to our baseball bats. Can anyone tell me what material baseball bats are made out of? Yeah, so baseball bats are made from wood. Now, professional baseball bats, they can't be reinforced with anything else. So they have to be solid wood. So they can't have things like metal or cork inside. It has to just be wood. Now, these baseball bats are mostly coming from ash, maple, and birch trees. And these trees are planted in clusters so that they have to grow straight up towards the sunlight. So they have a nice straight base. It takes about 40 to 50 years for these trees to grow to the right size to be able to be made into baseball bats. And each tree can make about 60 bats once it's harvested. All right, our baseball gloves. So we need something to catch our baseballs with, right? And kind of similar to our baseball gloves are actually made with the same material. They're made from leather, which is coming from our beef cows. Now, we saw in the video how baseballs were made, and our baseball gloves are kind of made in a similar way. So the leather is actually punched out using templates, and then they are sewn together, and then the fingers are stuffed with foam. And then all the lacing that goes around the baseball glove, all of that is actually done by hand. Now, one hide from a beef cow can actually make about 12 baseball gloves. So quite a few less baseball gloves than actual baseballs, but these gloves are a lot bigger than the actual balls themselves. All right, let's talk about baseball caps. These baseball caps are made with a crop that you actually might be wearing right now. This crop is used to make a lot of different material that we use for our clothing. So if you look at the tag in the back of your shirt, you might actually see this word, cotton. So we use cotton for fabric and clothing, and cotton comes from a plant that's mostly grown in the southern United States. So cotton is made up of these fibers that surround seeds. So these puffy parts here, this is called a cotton boll. And the boll is the fibers surrounding the seeds. The fibers are what we're using to make our fabric and clothing, but we don't waste the seeds either. We actually use the seeds for things like animal feed, oil, or stuffing in things like mattresses and furniture. So that's where cotton comes from. So check your tag and see if you're wearing cotton right now, because now you know what plant your clothing is made from. All right, baseball cleats. Now, cleats used to be made from cotton canvas, so our cotton plants, but that wasn't durable enough. So then they were made from things like calf leather and even kangaroo leather, which is kind of interesting. But today's baseball cleats are made from beef cows. Now, it's important to remember that beef cows are raised for specific products like meat and leather and things like that. So they're not pets, but they are raised and treated really well by farmers. So just be sure you have that distinction when you think about livestock compared to pets. All right, our baseball field. What do you think we're going to talk about on this one? What do you see growing on this field? Grass. Yes, so grass, we actually consider an agriculture product here. There are actually people who have special degrees in landscape management, and they take care of the grass. That's their whole job. So just like farmers are taking care of their crops and testing the soil and making sure our crops get enough water and fertilizers and light, the people who are working with our landscape management and the grass are doing the same thing. They're making sure that the soil has enough nutrients for the grass, that the grass is getting watered, that any holes are getting filled in, and they have to be really careful when they actually mow the grass. So if you mow the grass too short, it will actually weaken it and it can die off. So if you've ever seen your grass in the summertime at your houses, maybe your parents have mowed it and then we didn't get a lot of rain and it was hot, your grass turned all brown and died. That's what could happen to a baseball field too. So these people are trying to prevent that and make sure the grass is healthy all season long. All right. Now, when we go to a baseball game, we're usually handed a ticket, program, or schedule. And all of these things are printed on paper. So we know that paper comes from trees, but we want to talk about the actual ink that's used to print these things because the ink that's used comes from a really important Illinois crop. And that is soybeans. Now, if you watched our soybean video, you probably saw that soybeans could be used to make ink. So soybeans are a renewable resource. So their ink actually helps the paper be a little easier to recycle. It makes the colors a little bit better, and it can help the environment. It's a little more environmentally friendly. So traditional oil is made from petroleum and oil, and so that ink is not a renewable resource. So soybeans are a great way to print our paper products. All right, let's move on to some snacks, the best part of the ball game. Now, nachos, you know, we have to have corn chips and cheese for nachos, but there are a lot of other ingredients you could add, like jalapeno peppers, maybe some beef or guacamole. So I want you guys to pause this video with your class and talk about what your favorite things to put on nachos are, and if those items come from a plant or an animal. So go ahead and pause right now, and then when you come back, we're going to talk about the corn chips and the cheese. All right, so you probably guessed from the name, our corn chips are made from corn, specifically field corn. So the hulls of the kernel are removed, and then those kernels are ground down into flour. Now this flour is mixed with water and salt and lime and made into a dough. So once the dough has been formed, it's rolled out and cut into those triangle shapes that we like and fried. So that's where our corn chips are coming from. And then we know that cheese is a dairy product, and dairy products come from milk, and milk comes from our dairy cows. So our dairy cows, we know they weigh about 1,500 pounds. They eat about 100 pounds of food a day, drink a bathtub's worth of water, and produce 8 to 10 gallons of milk per day. And that milk is what is used to make our ice cream, butter, cheese, and yogurt, things like that. So that's where our cheese is coming from. All right. Peanuts. We have never talked about peanuts in any of our other lessons, and peanuts grow in kind of an interesting way. I want you guys to take a poll in your class. So do you think that peanuts grow on trees, on bushes, or underground? Go ahead and pause this video and take a poll in your class and see what everyone thinks. Do they grow on trees, bushes, or underground? All right, so peanuts actually grow underground. Most peanuts in the United States are grown in the southern states where it's a little bit warmer. And each one of these peanut plants can grow 25 to 50 peanuts per plant. Now, when the peanuts are ready to be harvested, the farmers will drive a special digger through the field to turn out the peanuts. And then they're going to leave those peanuts in the field for a few days so that they can start to dry out. So then once they're ready to be taken out of the field, a combine will come through and it's going to separate the peanuts from the rest of the plant, the vines and the roots. All right, up next, we've got some hot dogs. Now, just like nachos, there's a lot of things you can put on your hot dogs, but you definitely need the hot dog itself and the bun. Now, hot dogs are usually made from pork or beef. So pork comes from pigs. So some other examples of pork you're probably familiar with are bacon, ham, pork chops, those kind of things. Beef, we've talked about a little bit. Some other examples of beef are hamburger, steak, brisket. So either pork or beef is used to make the actual hot dogs. And then we have our wheat that we use to make our actual hot dog bun. Now, if you watched our pizza lesson, if you remember the wheat kernels, this top part here, the wheat kernels inside there are ground down and made into flour. And so then that flour is mixed with other ingredients to make a lot of different baked goods. So things like cookies, cakes, pretzels, and our hot dog buns all start with wheat kernels. All right, let's end here with something to drink. A lot of us drink soda pop when we go to the ball game to go along with our snacks. And soda has a lot of different ingredients in it, but the sweeteners in soda come from some agriculture crops. So the sweeteners can either come from sugar or corn. So sugar comes from sugar cane, which is a plant that grows usually in the southern United States. These sugar canes are crushed and the juices are extracted and boiled. And then the sugar is crystallized into those little tiny sugar crystals that we see when we buy it at the store. So that is used to sweeten our soda. Or we can actually use field corn. The sugars inside the corn can be used to make corn syrup, which is used as a sweetener in a lot of things like soda, candy, cereal, things like that. All right, so now you know where all of your baseball products are coming from and the plants and animals that we need to make them. So the next time you're out on the baseball field, make sure that you thank a farmer for providing you with all the things we need to play this awesome game. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.